I cannot state enough times that these claims I believe to be probable and likely provable. This one section, however, is not true. Let us get into this. This case, there are trigger warnings in here. There is a lot of contextualizing that has to be done with this case because I'm going to start it from the beginning. This case is so sloppily written. It is truly a disservice to this person's client, to Mr. Jones. So we'll get into that. So we're going to start with sensationalizing sexuality and the issues with the complaint. I tried to reorganize it and spent a lot of time reorganizing the case. That way we could go through it in some type of cogent manner. It's written as if it was written for a blog versus for a courtroom, unfortunately. So then we're going to talk about coercion as a method of control. We'll get into the 15 claims. And then specifically, we're going to focus on 3 sets of claims. So Diddy's documented history of gun violence, the one RICO claim, and then the human trafficking allegations. So that is what we're going to discuss. So starting with who the heck is in this complaint. So Rodney Jones, who is a music producer and was one of the producers on Diddy's Love album, is suing Sean Combs, aka Diddy. One of his sons, Justin Dior Combs, the CEO of one of Motown Records subsidiaries, Diddy's chief of staff, Lucien Charles Grange, who is another music executive, which we'll get into that, Chalice Recording Studios, Love Records, Motown Records, Universal Music Group, Combs Global Enterprises, John and Jane Doe's 1 through 10, and ABC Corporations 1 through 10. So they usually will use John Doe and Corporations Doe when they do not have the exact name. However, because this complaint was clearly written in haste, for some odd reason, there were people named here as Jane Doe that they could have easily ascertained what the name of the person was. And I don't know why they didn't. So first and foremost on here, similar to Cassie's complaint, there is a huge trigger warning. It should be noted, I won't be showing any of the photos in the complaint, and I'll tell y'all why specifically in a minute. So if you go and you are reading the complaint on your own, it is 75 pages. The document contains highly graphic information of a sexual nature, including sexual assault. Additionally, there are graphic images of the aftermath of a shooting, redacted images of sexual intercourse, redacted images of minors, sex workers and prostitutes, details of sex trafficking, and the illegal distribution of guns and drugs. Instead of paying attention to the very visceral things that are happening, people are now instead talking about whether or not Diddy is bisexual, whether or not Diddy is gay, whether or not, etc., instead of focusing on the fact that a predator will prey on anyone. The way that the lawyer decided to go about this, clearly they wrote the complaint in an effort to get the most amount of media attention possible, which can, the strategy could be, hey, I want enough people to see this because my client feels like they're in danger and I want my client to feel protected, and this is going to get the most amount of clicks. However, it's done in such a disingenuous manner that it does take away from what are likely provable and credible claims. It has been known for many, many decades that Diddy is an equal opportunity predator. That is not anything new. It should have been written with more tact, to be honest, because people are not giving the same amount of kindness and empathy to Rodney Jones as they did to Cassie. And the claims are largely very similar. All right, so let's get into that, and specifically from the complaint, how it's written in a way that just has me side-eyeing the lawyer. Mr. Combs attempted to groom Mr. Jones into engaging in gay sex. Why would you write this way? This is unnecessary. Simply, you could say Mr. Combs attempted to groom Mr. Jones, coercing Mr. Jones into sexual acts. You could have said non-consent, etc. Writing it in this way, again, is for the blogs, is to be salacious. So then the complaint goes on to say, Mr. Combs used access to Stevie J and his knowledge of Mr. Jones' admiration of Stevie J to groom and entice Mr. Jones to engage in homosexuality. The reference of the type of sexuality is unnecessary because in the Cassie complaint, Cassie unfortunately was viscerally and violently abused. It never says Mr. Combs coerced and seduced Cassandra Ventura to engage in heterosexuality. No, it simply says Mr. Combs coerced and seduced Cassandra Ventura to engage in sex against her will. It could have literally been written the same exact way. Writing it any other way is only done in a way to basically demonize a different type of sexuality. That is the only reason why the lawyer would write it in this way. Unwanted sex is unwanted sex. I cannot state enough times that these claims I believe to be probable and likely provable. This one section, however, is not true because the screenshots are incorrect. It then came out a few days later that an adult entertainer was like, no, it's not Stevie J. It's me at work giving work because that's my job. That's what I'm doing. That opens the ground for not only defamation from Stevie J's end to be like, why are you alleging that I'm over here doing this when this is not me? But B, it brings up the credibility of any photo shown because now you have a photo which has proven to be false. So that is why, two reasons why I'm not going to show any of these photos, because now I don't know the veracity of any of the other photos. And again, the only person this is doing a huge disservice to is Rodney Jones. The argument could be, oh, because the video is so old and grainy that they were showing that Diddy led Rodney Jones to believe the video is Stevie J. Maybe. However, it has been proven that video and those pictures that are in the complaint are not Stevie J. Why would you, as a lawyer who is barred in a state, not just go and check before you include very salacious and intimate pictures of somebody? I hope Rodney Jones after this gets a new lawyer, to be honest, because having gone out on a limb to say all these things that happened puts you in a very vulnerable position, of course, as the victim of abuse. And he deserves to have a lawyer that is taking him seriously, because I cannot fathom, besides getting the media attention, what the alleged strategy would be to make documented mistakes. Let's get into a quick overview of the claims. So let me make me small so y'all could see it. So there are 15 total claims. There's the 1 RICO claim, the 4 human trafficking claims, 2 assault claims. They're both sexual assault, 5 emotional distress claims. So emotional distress claims specifically listed are IIED, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and NIED. I have this spelled wrong, sorry. Negligent infliction of emotional distress. The emotional distress claims are arising out of the sexual assault. So stating essentially like, hey, I was assaulted, and because I was assaulted, I have had you have caused me emotional distress. There are 3 premises liability claims. So premises liability, when you are the owner of a space, you owe a duty of care to the person entering your space. So for example, if I had a house and I had a party at my house and I was like, you know what, I set booby traps all over my house, I have a duty of care to you to be like, you know what, I like to do strange things. There are booby traps in the house, so don't walk over there because foolishness is going to happen. For example, because some of these assaults took place on Diddy's property, that is why there are 3 premises liability claims, or on properties that were under the control of Diddy at the time. So specifically, you have the Cuba Gooding Jr. assault allegation. So that is a premise liability claim, pops up in here against Diddy saying like, hey, this was a space that you were in control of, that you owed me a duty of care, that I'm not going to come into your space and be assaulted, allegedly by Cuba Gooding Jr. Then you have Young Miami's cousin's assault allegation that also then leads into another premises liability claim. All right, so I won't read all of them, but we're going to get into the RICO one. So we'll get into that later. You have sexual assault. Then you have California's bystander negligent infliction of emotional distress against Mr. Combs. And remember, one of the defendants is one of his sons. Another son is mentioned in a complaint that is coming later on. So we'll discuss that at the end. This is essentially the bystander negligent infliction of emotional distress is you just stood there and you should have done something. So you're also, these are all civil claims. So you owe a duty of care. So then again, sexual assault by Young Miami's cousin, premises liability for sexual assault committed allegedly by Young Miami's cousin, Jane Doe number 1. This should not say Jane Doe. It's irritating me, the sloppiness in this case, because if you know that it is allegedly the cousin, why did y'all not call her agent, say, hey, we're submitting documentation. What is your cousin's name? The internet has probably found her cousin if the internet so wanted to. Okay, and then we have the trafficking claim. So Trafficking and Victims Protection Act. Then you also have aiding, abetting, and inducing a sex trafficking venture in violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. And then it continues on with the IED that we talked about, and then again for more trafficking claims as well. So we are going to go through Diddy's documented history of gun violence and threats. I agree, Lamara. I guess she wasn't famous enough, or the fact that she isn't a man wouldn't be salacious enough. I think so. I think because both of those reasons why the lawyer, Mr. Blackburn, Tyrone Blackburn, didn't particularly feel the need to, finish the work, because he's going to have to amend the complaint anyway. I think part of his strategy, for whatever reason, was, hey, I'm just going to get this out as soon as possible. And what was the reason? What was the reason, truly? There is in the complaint an alleged recording studio shooting. So there was a writers and producers camp that apparently Diddy would throw a lot of these, and writing camps are somewhat, I would say, very common in the music industry, where different producers or studios will put together a writers camp and be like, hey, let's get together and do a workshop. Y'all write songs. Some of our favorite songs have come out of writers camps, which is very interesting. So the allegation is, during this producers camp, one of Justin Combs' friends unfortunately got into a heated conversation with Diddy and Justin Combs, to which then a shooting occurred, and no one saw who shot the friend. The friend's name is G. That's what they're referenced to in this complaint. I'm assuming they want the anonymity because the friend does not want their name to be in here. Maybe they didn't get that clearance to include their name. So while this happened, Mr. Jones, who is the victim in this complaint, was approximately 2 feet away from the bathroom when gunshots rang out. Mr. Jones recalls hearing multiple gunshots. Mr. Jones immediately went into a state of shock and feared that he would be shot next, because he genuinely believed that he would be shot through the door due to how close he was. After the shooting ended, a crowd gathered around the restroom. When the door finally opened, Mr. Combs and Justin Combs exited. G was lying on the restroom floor in a fetal position, holding his stomach and bleeding out of his leg-hip area. Everyone stood around looking upon G. Frustrated by the lack of aid to G, Mr. Jones dropped everything, ran to G, and immediately began placing pressure on G's gunshot wound to his stomach. As he was applying pressure on his stomach, Mr. Jones realized that G was gushing blood from another area near his hip/leg. Well, it was the other way around. I said it backwards. He decided to lift G and placed him to sit on the toilet. Mr. Jones asked the crowd to call the ambulance. Mr. Jones lifted G and brought him to the ambulance at the studio's front. It's my understanding, unfortunately, if you ever get yourself in this type of situation, that you're not supposed to move the person. Just put that out there from the medical people and what medical people have told me. At this time, Mr. Combs and Justin disappeared to another part of the studio. Mr. Combs gave strict instruction to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the shooting. He also forced Mr. Jones to lie to the police by telling them that G was shot standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. Mr. Jones has the clothing he wore that day and believes it may still have the stains and DNA of G's blood. The following are screenshots of the aftermath of the restroom where G was shot by either Mr. Combs or Jay Combs. Now, because of the Stevie J photograph debacle, I'm not going to include those photos because there's no way for me to verify that the photos are correct. But in the complaint, they do include very graphic photos that shows that there's blood on the premises, that it is in the bathroom, and it is in disarray. After the result of the shooting, Mr. Jones is severely traumatized. Mr. Jones now suffers from PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Now, that was paragraphs about 40 to paragraph 52. It then forgets about that in the complaint, and then at paragraph 154, it brings it back up again. So I'm just going to read through it, and then we'll discuss it in a second, so that way the entirety of it makes sense. Paragraph 134, Mr. Combs made it clear that his head of security, so again, Fahim Mohammed, had the power to make people and problems disappear. Mr. Combs instructs his staff to always contact Mr. Mohammed if they are ever pulled over by the police in Miami or California. Cassie also corroborated this in her complaint. Upon information and belief, Mr. Mohammed spoke with the LAPD after G was shot at the studio. The LAPD was in the studio and witnessed the blood in the restroom, and they then went with the bogus claim that the shooting of G occurred outside of the studio. This was all thanks to Mr. Mohammed's connections within law enforcement. Mr. Jones has no reason to disbelieve Mr. Combs after he had seen firsthand through the shooting of G and the subsequent silence of the LAPD and the media that Mr. Combs indeed had the power to harm him. One of the things that should be noted, because people again are so focused on just letting their homophobic flag fly, people are ignoring the fact that we have known that Diddy not only is allegedly a violent predator, but is somebody who has gotten away with specifically the Shine shooting in 1999, to which Shine went to prison for 10 years, and it had come out numerous times that Shine took the fall. Shine was Diddy's protege at the time, and then served the prison sentence for a shooting he did not do. So this is then included. On another occasion, while standing in Mr. Combs' bedroom, Mr. Jones was forced to watch as Mr. Combs displayed his guns and bragged about getting away with shooting people. Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York City with rapper Shine. Diddy's former bodyguard accuses the rapper of snitching on Shine over 1999 shooting. He shared that artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another video. This also very much mirrors what was in Cassie's lawsuit, where to implicate Cassie in Diddy's nefarious behavior, she alleged that he would have her carry his gun in her purse, regardless of the fact that she was very uncomfortable, as evidence with J-Lo. And J-Lo said, "Chill, I'm breaking up with this man. I'm not doing this." And that was noted as well. The forcing of your partner at the time to then be a co-conspirator in your crime by carrying the gun. A TikTok exposing specifically what happened with the Shine shooting has since come out. I want to read this quick excerpt to corroborate the TikTok as well, by Jen Carlson, published June 23rd, 2011 from The Gothamist. Diddy finally settles lawsuit from 1999 Club New York shooting. According to the New York Post, Sean Diddy Combs has now quietly settled all civil actions against him from the incident. 3 patrons of Club New York were shot during the scuffle, and it's been reported that the most seriously injured, Natanya Rubin, has received $1.8 million. She was shot in the nose and 7 bullet fragments were lodged in her face, and she suffered seizures as a result. The other victims were paid $500,000 and $50,000 respectively. The Post notes that Diddy, who was acquitted in the criminal case related to the brawl, had to pay out of pocket because his insurance company had gone belly up. This is from 2011. And I'm going to play this clip from Natanya Rubin, which she posted to her TikTok account 3 days ago.
I am the woman who he shot in the face in that 1999, December 27th, 1999, Club New York shooting. I have told everyone ad nauseum since then, even the surgeon who did the surgery, to take the bullet. I got shot in my face with a 9 millimeter hollow point bullet called a cop killer. I literally have told everyone and never changed what I said. I watched him. I got pow-powed in the face. I watched him fire the gun. I've said it all this time. Even the surgeon who did my surgery to take out part of the bullet fragments that was aspirating into my lungs and try to remove as many bullet fragments as possible testified in the criminal trial that while they were putting me under, I was screaming, "Puffy, pew pew me in the face."
So specifically in the video, she also talks about how she has been harassed since 1999 by Diddy. It should be known the timeline. According to her, and she has kept the same story since 1999, he shot her in the face in 1999. In 2011, after that's 12 years of litigation, she finally received her settlement in the case. And even after the settlement, she goes on to state that occasionally her tires every time she speaks out to remind people again what happened to her, her tires have been slashed. She's received death threats, that younger people will go online and tell her like that never happened, that didn't occur. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, yes, it did occur. And that she is going to continue cooperating with whoever is doing a full investigation into how he has gotten away with all these crimes for all these years.